Captain Jake Morrison, stared out at the stars through the reinforced glass of the Nightfall's bridge. 300 years had passed since humanity last saw these skies, 3 centuries spent surviving in the cold dark beyond the galaxy's edge. Now, they were coming home. The Nightfall was massive, larger than any warship Earth had ever built. Surrounding it were 200 more ships, each one part of the Terran Liberation Fleet. Every vessel carried advanced weapons no alien species had ever encountered, and each was crewed by humans born in exile, descendants of survivors who grew up on stories of Earth and the worlds they had lost. Jake, now 50, appeared decades younger. Time and hardship had changed humanity. They lived longer, grew stronger, and had learned to build the impossible. In exile, adaptation had meant survival. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez approached, a data pad in hand, and concern written on her face. One of the fleet's top intelligence officers. She had spent the last 5 years digging through old galactic records to understand the state of the galaxy they were re-entering. "Captain," she said, her voice low, tight with anger, "we've received the first reports from our scouts." Jake took the pad and scanned the data. His hands trembled. Before the exile, 12 billion humans had lived across the stars. The alien powers had promised peace, promised to leave human colonies untouched. They had lied. "How many are left?" Jake asked, already fearing the answer. "Fewer than 50 million, Amy replied. "Most are enslaved. The rest are hiding in systems the aliens don't care about." Her voice hardened. "The Zephyrians turned our farm worlds into labor camps. The Nexari stripped the industrial colonies and worked our people to death." Commander Ben Hayes, manning the station, overheard. He was older, one of the few who still remembered Earth itself. His own family had died on one of the first fallen colonies. "Sir," Ben said, "we're picking up signals from surviving human outposts. Some of them are still calling for help." Jake stepped over to the console. The transmissions were faint, sent from outdated equipment, but unmistakably human. "This is Colony 7 in the Kepler system. The Zephyrians took most of our people last month, said they needed miners. We know what that means. Please, if any Terrans are left, help us. New Austin to any human fleet." Nexari raiders returned. "They took our children this time. All of them. We tried to resist, but we've only got tools. They have weapons. We can't hold them off." Jake closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his expression was carved from steel. "Send word to the fleet captains," he told Amy. "War room, 1 hour." Ben nodded grimly. "I'll keep scanning for signals. Every surviving human matters." Admiral Lisa Parker was already waiting in the war room, her posture straight, eyes sharp. She commanded the entire fleet, a woman born in deep space, raised for this mission. Captains of every major ship gathered around the table. "The reports are worse than we thought," Lisa began without preamble. "The Galactic Confederation turned our former territories into a slave empire. They're using human labor because we're stronger, smarter, and they're killing us through overwork." Captain Frank Davis of the Revenge slammed a fist on the table. "Then we wiped them out. Every last one that took our worlds." "No," Lisa said firmly. "We don't kill the innocent, but the ones who enslaved, tortured, and watched without lifting a hand. They'll answer for what they've done." Jake scanned the room. Every face showed the same anger. But none wanted revenge. They wanted justice. Captain Susan Miller of the Resolution asked, "What about our tech edge? Do they even know we're still out here?" Amy answered, "They think we died." The last transmission from the exile fleet was 300 years ago. As far as they know, humanity is extinct. "They have no idea what we've become," Lisa added. "In the void beyond the galaxy, humanity had evolved. They learned to fold space, bypassing outdated jump gate technology. They built weapons, capable of annihilating entire fleets, and they'd unlocked their greatest secret, quantum resurrection. Every death left a trace and imprint of the person's mind and memories. After 2 centuries of research, humanity had perfected a way to retrieve those quantum shadows and bring the dead back. The aliens think they won, Lisa said. They split our systems among themselves. Cephrians own the farms, Nexari, the mines. 5 other species took the rest. Jake gave a cold, tight smile. Then they're about to discover how wrong they were. Outside the war room, the Liberation Fleet advanced. Inside its cargo holds, machines hummed the quantum resurrection engines, ready to restore every murdered human from the occupied systems. Humanity had returned, and this time, death itself would not stop them. Meanwhile, deep in the research vessel Blackwater, Dr. Kevin Walsh stood among humming machinery. This lab represented 50 years of work, the culmination of his life's effort to solve humanity's greatest mystery, how to reverse death. Kevin had lost his wife 2 decades ago. The early resurrection tech hadn't been enough to save her. But now, finally, it was ready. "Doctor," said engineer Carla Thompson, entering the lab. "We're nearly at the first test site." Carla, Kevin's top student, understood the resurrection process better than anyone alive. Their destination, Haven 7, once a human mining colony. The Nexari had slaughtered every settler, then stripped the moon bare. But that wasn't the end. Soon, Haven 7's fallen would rise again, and they wouldn't be alone. The war for freedom had begun, and this time, humanity was bringing the dead back with them. But the aliens had made one critical mistake. They left the bodies behind, and that was all Dr. Kevin Walsh needed. "Are the quantum field generators ready?" Kevin asked. "Yes, sir," Carla Thompson replied, checking her instruments. "We've placed them around the entire colony site. The field is stable and ready for activation." She hesitated, eyes flicking to the screen. "Doctor, are you sure this will work?" The lab simulations were promising, but this is different. These people have been dead for over a century. Kevin didn't answer immediately. His gaze was fixed on the main display showing the ruins of the colony. The skeletal remains were long gone, turned to dust by time, but something had remained. Something deeper. "Death isn't the end, Carla," he said softly. "Not anymore. Every living being leaves behind an imprint in the fabric of space, a quantum echo of who they were, their thoughts, memories, ... identity. We can read those echoes, and we can rebuild them." His fingers moved across the control panel, beginning quantum resurrection sequence ... Now. The hum of the machines intensified. On the screen, nothing changed at first. The building stood silent, the streets empty. Then, slowly, it began. Pale shapes started to emerge like mist, ghostly silhouettes forming in the dusty streets of the colony. At first translucent, they gradually became solid. Men and women in mining gear. Children in the abandoned schoolhouse. Families reappearing inside their homes. Carla gasped. "My God, ... It's working. They're coming back." On the screen, the first resurrected humans looked around in shock and confusion. They remembered the terror, the gunfire, the alien soldiers. They remembered dying. Now, they were alive again. In the same place. Somehow, ... Whole. Kevin opened a comm channel. "This is Dr. Kevin Walsh of the Terran Liberation Fleet. Can you hear me?" A voice answered, clear, shaky, full of disbelief. "Yes, ... This is Mary Chen. I was the colony administrator. I remember dying. How is this possible?" "You did die, Mary. But death is no longer permanent. We've learned to restore the quantum imprint left behind. You've been brought back, and there's something else, ... As Kevin spoke, the resurrected began to notice the changes. They could phase through walls, Their minds could interface directly with machines. They could sense things the living never could: frequencies, energy, even intentions. "You're alive again," Kevin said, "but you've also been enhanced. You're not just human anymore. You're something more." From the observation deck, Colonel Steve Martinez, commander of Operation Lazarus, watched the event unfold. "Dr. Walsh," he asked, "how long until they're combat ready?" Kevin's voice was calm. "They already are, Colonel. The resurrected aren't weak. They're stronger than they were in life, and they remember everything that was done to them. They're ready to fight." On the surface of Haven 7, the newly reborn humans gathered in the colony's central square. Mary Chen stood before them, alive again, and more powerful than she had ever imagined. "Listen to me," she said, her voice amplified by something more than just sound. "We have been given a second chance. We were not brought back to live in peace. We were brought back to fight." The crowd was silent. These were farmers, miners, engineers, people who had never held weapons in their first lives. But death had changed them. The pain, the betrayal, the memory of alien brutality had hardened them. Now, they were warriors. Aboard the fleet's flagship, navigator Helen Brooks monitored resurrection operations across dozens of systems. Each glowing dot on her map represented a former human colony: 37 worlds, 37 graveyards down, 37 battlefields. Initiating simultaneous resurrection across all locations, Helen announced to the fleet, "Operation Lazarus is active. Across the stars, field generators activated. On New Kansas. Once an agricultural paradise, dead farmers rose through the fields that had become prison yards. The Zephyrian guards thought they were hallucinating, until the phantoms became solid and deadly. On Beta 7, the Nexari patrolling the mines panicked. Their weapons had no effect. The pale figures ignored bullets, walking straight through barricades and walls. They weren't ghosts. They were human, and they were back." Captain Frank Davis, commander of the Revenge, led one of the first surface teams to Kepler 442b, once the breadbasket of human space. Now a labor camp built on 3 centuries of mass death. He stood at the center of a devastated plain, activating resurrection sequence on Kepler 442b. He reported the generator's HUMMED, and the response was immediate. Thousands began to rise, eyes glowing with purpose, hearts burning with fury. The galaxy had thought humanity was gone, but now the dead were walking, and the war for Earth's lost future had only just begun. The dead did not return slowly on Kepler 442b. They came all at once, millions of them. They appeared simultaneously in every field, every tunnel, and every ruined building across the planet. The Zephyrian guards were overwhelmed, surrounded by an army of the dead. But these weren't mindless zombies from ancient human myths. Were conscious, aware humans. They remembered who they were. They remembered their families, their homes, and they remembered who had taken it all from them. The Zephyrian commander tried desperately to call for reinforcements, but it was already too late. The resurrected humans had seized the planetary communication network within minutes. Their new abilities allowed them to interface directly with technology. Machines obeyed their thoughts like extensions of their bodies. "Command, this is Kepler 442b, the panicked voice transmitted. "We have a situation. The humans are back. I repeat, the dead humans are back. And they're not acting normal. They can walk through walls. They can control our equipment. We need immediate the transmission cut off. There would be no reinforcements." The same scene was playing out across 36 other former human worlds. The dead were rising, and they were moving with purpose, with strategy, with coordination. In his command center, aboard the science vessel Blackwater, Dr. Kevin Walsh reviewed the incoming reports from every active site. The resurrection protocols were stable. The resurrected were adapting rapidly to their new abilities, and they were ready to fight. Phase 1 of Operation Lazarus is complete. Kevin reported to Admiral Lisa Parker. Resurrection is active on all 37 target worlds. The dead have returned and they remember everything. The galaxy was about to learn a terrible truth. Humanity had not only survived their 300-year exile, they had learned how to conquer death itself. General Patricia Lay, commander of the battleship Thunder, stood at the helm as her fleet dropped out of quantum fold space. Around her, 50 Terran vessels emerged into real space above the Tau Ceti system, once a thriving human colony. Now, the Nexari's largest mining stronghold. General, we have visual on the Nexari defense fleet, her tactical officer reported. 37 ships in defensive formation, holding position around the mining stations. Patricia studied the display. The Nexari fleet was large and well-armed, but designed to fight other aliens. They had never faced humans who had spent 3 centuries mastering survival through desperation and innovation. All ships, Patricia ordered, execute attack pattern Alpha. Let's show them what we learned in the dark between the stars. The Terran ships surged forward like a pack of predators, built sleek and deadly. They unleashed coordinated strikes that lit up the void. Energy beams tore through the Nexari vessels with surgical precision. The battle lasted 6 minutes. Captain Frank Davis, aboard the Vengeance, watched the final Nexari ships explode into debris. Below, Tau Ceti Prime awaited, the site of one of the oldest human massacres. The surface was scarred by massive open-pit mines and extraction towers. Billions had died there over centuries of forced labor. Now the dead were returning, and they didn't need ships to land. As Frank's landing craft descended, the resurrected dead began materializing directly on the planet's surface, appearing inside mining stations, warehouses, and barracks. At Mining Station 7, Nexari guards opened fire on pale, human figures emerging from walls, but the plasma blasts passed right through them. The figures kept coming. They're walking through walls. The Nexari commander shouted, "Our weapons don't work." One of the resurrected miners stepped forward. His name was John Parker. He had died here 2 centuries ago, crushed in a tunnel collapse. Now, he was back. He touched the command console, overloading it with a spark of quantum energy. The machinery exploded. The Nexari commander fell backward, stunned but alive. "My name is John Parker," the miner said, his voice echoing from every direction. "You killed me in Tunnel 14, March 15th. Do you remember?" The commander tried to flee, but more figures emerged from the walls. All miners, all dead, all returned. They remembered everything. Meanwhile, Major Linda Foster led her assault team into the main administrative complex. The Nexari had built their headquarters directly on top of the old human government Centaura monument to domination. But the tide had turned. "Surrender now," Linda announced over the facility's intercom, "and you will be treated fairly. Resist and you will face the judgment of the dead." The Nexari didn't understand until the walls dissolved and the resurrected walked in. They shut down defense systems with a thought. They didn't need guns. They were the weapons, orbiting the planet. Paul Wright managed the Terran information campaign from his command ship. He activated all Galactic Confederation broadcast channels. "This is the Terran Liberation Fleet," he declared. "We have returned to reclaim what was stolen from us. All alien forces occupying human territory have 24 hours to evacuate. After that, you face the consequences." Alien news agencies dismissed it as a hoax. Humans had been extinct for centuries, but then reports from Tau Ceti and the other 36 systems started pouring in. The impossible was happening. The dead were back and they were winning. On the Zephyrian homeworld, High Commander Vex watched the tactical updates in stunned disbelief. 37 former human worlds attacked simultaneously, entire garrisons destroyed or retreating. "Sir," his aide reported, voice shaking, We have a transmission from Colony Base 12. They say the attackers are dead humans, that our weapons don't work, that they walk through walls. That's impossible, Vex snarled. Dead is dead. But he knew. The reports were consistent. The invaders remembered old facility layouts, new control systems, knew where the power grids were buried. These weren't mindless monsters. They were vengeful minds in untellable bodies. Back on Tau Ceti Prime, the humans had retaken the planet in under 12 hours. The Nexuri's centuries-old mining empire was gone. More importantly, the human slaves still trapped below the surface, some born into captivity, were free at last, Captain. Susan Miller led the rescue efforts deep into the mines. It's okay, she whispered to a group of frightened children. You're safe now. We're humans, just like you, and we've come to take you home. An old man stared at her in disbelief. We thought we were the last, he said through tears. We thought all free humans were gone. We were never gone, Susan replied gently. We were just waiting for the right moment to return, and now we're here to stay. As night fell over Tau Ceti Prime, the resurrected dead stood in the streets of their old colony. They had come full circle home again, but changed, transformed by death into something more than human. John Parker stood among them and spoke for all. We have returned from death itself. We remember what was done to us. We remember who did it. And we have only one message. He looked to the stars. The reckoning has begun. His military council fell silent. They had all seen the battle feeds. They had watched Unity Station fall in under 2 hours. They had watched human ships phase through walls of neutronium-reinforced alloy, bypassing shields, bypassing logic. They had seen the resurrected walk unharmed through fusion fire and melt steel with a glance. They had seen a fleet made of the living and the day-denied, relentless and unbreakable. The silence in the Crimson Empire war chamber was broken only by the soft hum of incoming reports. Worlds were falling, colonies vanishing in bursts of quantum light, fleets destroyed before they could mount a response. One of Vortex's generals finally spoke. Chancellor, our ships cannot stop them. Our weapons don't touch them. Even if we kill their bodies, they come back. We are not fighting an army. We are fighting an inevitability. Vortex's hands clenched into fists. We are the Crimson Empire. We were gods among these people. No, the general replied quietly. We were their executioners. And now their dead have come back for justice. Back on New Geneva, President-elect Dan Crawford looked out over a crowd of billions broadcast from every liberated world, watched by human and alien alike. He raised his hand, and the voices fell quiet. This is not the end of the war, he said. This is the beginning of a new age. We were exiled. We were hunted. We were enslaved. But death could not hold us. Fear could not stop us. We are more than survivors now. We are resurrected humanity. We are the living. We are the dead. And we are united. Across the stars, human and resurrected hands clenched in silent solidarity. From the edge of the galaxy to the ancient capitals of their oppressors, one message echoed. Humanity has returned, and nothing will ever take their future from them again. Advisors pleaded with Chancellor Vortex. Chancellor, the humans wield weapons we cannot counter. Their resurrected soldiers cannot be killed. Every fleet we've deployed against them has been annihilated. But Vortex refused to listen. In defiance, he ordered his remaining forces to make a final stand along the border of Crimson Space, decision that would spell the end of his empire. Captain Jake Morrison, who had led the first Terran ships back into the galaxy, was tasked with responding to the Crimson Empire's challenge. Aboard the Nightfaller's ship, now upgraded with the most advanced quantum weaponry, he issued one last warning. Crimson Fleet. This is Captain Morrison of the Terran Liberation Forces. Stand down immediately. Any act of aggression will be met with overwhelming force. But instead of replying, the Crimson ships opened fire. Their energy blasts struck the Nightfall's shields and vanished absorbed and redirected by the ship's quantum armor. All ships, return fire, Morrison ordered. Show them why resistance is futile. The battle was over in under 30 minutes. The Crimson fleet was obliterated, their ships ripped apart by weapons that defied conventional physics. Chancellor Vortex perished aboard his flagship, unwilling, until his final breath, to believe that his empire could fall to humanity. With the Crimson Fleet's destruction, the last organized resistance to humanity's resurgence collapsed. The remaining alien powers rushed to surrender, desperate to avoid the same fate. Meanwhile, Dr. Kevin Walsh continued refining the quantum resurrection technology, the miracle that had brought back millions. Now, it was even more efficient. Soon, death would be no more than a temporary setback for humans. Quantum field networks are now fully stable across all human worlds. Kevin reported to the new government. Every human who dies is instantly backed up in the field. For our species, death is now reversible. The implications were profound. Humanity could now take risks others would never, exploring hostile regions of space, waging impossible battles, and pushing the frontiers of science without fear of true loss. On Unity Station, the former heart of galactic governance, alien leaders who had once ordered humanity's exile were brought before a tribunal. The judges were a mix of the living and the resurrected, some of whom had died during the occupation. The trials were impartial, but thorough. Every atrocity was recorded. Every war crime was addressed. Those who orchestrated the genocide of human colonies were sentenced to life on prison worlds, guarded by the very people they had sought to exterminate. Those who stood by in silence received a different punishment, exile into the void of uncharted space. Unlike humanity, they had no means of surviving in the dark between stars. From the rebuilt capital of New Earth, President Dan Crawford addressed the galaxy. To all species, humanity has returned not as conquerors, but as the rightful children of these stars. We extend peace to those who seek it, protection to those who need it, but to those who threaten the innocent we offer no mercy. The Quantum Resurrection Network continued to grow, expanding beyond human territory to include trusted allies. The gift that had brought humanity back from the grave would now be shared with those who proved themselves worthy. A new age dawned, an age where death was no longer the end, where humanity stood as guardians of justice, and where the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The resurrected dead walked beside the living, eternal witnesses to the crimes committed and the justice delivered. The alien powers that had once driven humanity into exile now existed under strict observation. They had learned a hard truth. Humanity might fall, but it would always rise again. Death only made them stronger. Even the stars seemed changed, as if they recognized the return of their rightful inhabitants. Humanity had come home. They brought with them the one force no empire could ever defeat, the power to overcome death itself. The age of human dominance had begun, and it would never end, because when death is no longer final, victory becomes eternal. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species that turned resurrection into revolution, who transformed defeat into destiny. The dead had risen, the living had returned, and the stars were finally home once more.